One.
Welcome to Com Nation.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight.
My ancestors would often say, only the most broken people can be great leaders. Introducing Namor was really an opportunity to introduce another sovereign ruler of a group of people. He shows up representing Talokan.
He's coming for the surface world.
In Marvel Publishing, Namor was one of the first superheroes, frankly.
They called him Kul Khan, the feather serpent god.
Namor loves his people, and he's gonna protect them because to be a ruler, you have to serve the people. Talokan has a deep meaning for me. It's part of my personal heritage as a Mexican, as an inhabitant of Mesoamerica. Finally, I could find a more powerful representation of my culture with dignity and respect.
I cannot wait for everyone to see Talokan. I'm excited about how we're gonna see the world come alive. Both nations want the same thing, which is to preserve and to protect their people, but they're willing to go about it different ways.
I need to know if Wakanda is an ally or an enemy.
Namor is very much concerned with what he needs and what he wants. This delicate dance between the two of them. I get chills just thinking about it.
Who are you?
My enemies call me Namor.
So tonight we're talking about Namor.
Yes. The Prince of the Seas.
No,
Not
I'm
to be
down
confused
here.
with the Chicken of the Sea.
So good evening, and thanks for coming to Com Nation Trivia.
Because remember, you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. And the jokes don't get any better.
Nope. We're doing a deep dive tonight. Yep.
For those of you who have come back, God, thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again.
But the jokes aren't going to get any better.
Just keep swimming.
This week we're talking Namor. He made his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut in the Wakanda movie. You've seen the movie. Now read the comic book. Even though, hey, let's face it, Namor in the comics, there's a lot that's different from Namor.
Yes.
In the movie.
There is.
But we're going to talk a little bit about it and hopefully convince you to check out the Namor comic book.
Yes.
Now, those of you who've come back, you know what we normally do is we focus most of our trivia on one specific graphic novel. This week, we're doing Namor Visionaries.
Yeah.
John Byrne came out in 1990.
Yep. Wrote it, drew it, inked some of it.
Yeah. I think he did everything but color and letter it, but there you go. If you want to play trivia, and you should, if you're here, go to
crowd.live/T4N4
or scan the QR code. If you're watching it later, it's not going to be the same. If you're playing trivia for the first time, it's multiple choice. We're basing it on this comic book, so if it's
in general comic continuity. So
some of the stuff may not be what you know, but it's going to be pretty close. And it's multiple choice, y'all. You got like a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right.
Right.
So let's start talking about Namor.
You say Namor, I say Namor.
Don't say Namor. So Namor was originally created by
William Bill Everett.
Yeah, William, usually known as Bill, William Blake Everett.
Mhm.
So, in addition to Namor the Submariner,
Yes.
not Submariner, Submariner,
Mhm.
Bill Everett created what? He created, well, he
Daredevil.
co-created Daredevil. Daredevil, you've heard of that one. And Zombie.
Yes.
There were a couple other characters he created or co-created, but those were the big favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but those of you who know that Namor was created in like 1939. That was a minute ago.
Okay.
And those of you who really
You're after
know
Superman.
that it's like, that was way before Marvel Comics existed necessarily. In the So when they created Namor
For a comic book packager.
for the comic book packager. Now, comic book packager, all I'm going to say, well, it's not all I'm going to say, but outsourcing isn't new. When comics was first starting up, it was a new, novel thing. People were just trying to, like, the printers were just trying to make money on the color presses on days where the Sunday paper didn't come out. So they came up with the idea of colorizing the comic strips, and then they put them in a book. And here we are a million years later, and here we are. There was a company that was called Funnies.
No laughing matter.
That actually created. They were a comic book packager. There were, they would gather up art and storylines and put it together and then sell it for other publishing houses.
Yes. That's how comic books were born.
Exactly. Back in the day. Outsourcing, not a new thing.
Yep.
But the first issue that saw Namor had someone else in it that you would know. Who else? If it's a Human Torch?
Yeah, but not Johnny Storm.
No. If you know, okay, so first of all, it was Marvel Mystery Comics. And
yes.
So it was the first issue. This was the 1939 issue. It had Human Torch, who at the time was not Johnny Storm. It was
Jim Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
He was an android.
Yeah. And he was created by Phineas Horton, and we're planning on doing we're thinking about doing a show about Vision some point in the future. Yes. And if and when we do it, we'll unpack a lot of that. But yeah,
because there's a connection.
Namor is like 90 years old. Human Torch is as well, but there you go.
Looks good for his age.
I think he uses
must be all that seawater exfoliation or whatever he's,
Yeah, that's it. Now, in the movie, Namor's father, I'm not even sure he gets named, but in the comic books, we know who his daddy was.
Yes.
In the comic, Namor's father was a sea captain.
Appropriately enough.
So, a little context. In 1915, Ernest Shackleton,
the potential famous explorer.
Yep. He was sent out by Winston Churchill to search for, what was it they were looking for?
Vibranium.
And something happened. Vibranium. Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
And, well, that didn't go well.
Nope.
for an assortment of reasons.
Especially not for Mr. Shackleton.
Yeah. So 5 years later, in 1920, Leonard Mackenzie took out a boat and tried to see if he could find some.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong?
Set sail on a 3-hour cruise. Oh.
Anyway, so he went out cruising along. What was his ship's name?
Is it the Orca? No, that's Quint's ship. Sorry.
With the Oracle.
Right.
Todd, for no additional points, the Hawk sub. Who's that?
Oh. It's not Hawkman's, is it? It's somebody else.
Not. It's Captain Blackhawk.
Right.
Yeah. So if you watch the show long enough, you'll know a couple of things. First of all, Legion of Substitute Superheroes. I love them.
Yes.
And Captain Blackhawk. I love him. He's got a whole crew. There's Lady Blackhawk. They had a Saturday morning cartoons or Saturday movie series kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
My dad loved him. That's where I come by it, honestly. It has nothing to do with Namor ever, but
Yeah. But they had a Hawk sub because they're the Hawks.
And hawk ships and
yeah.
So his dad was Leonard Mackenzie, who's cruising along on the Oracle.
Yep.
And and his mother,
Ariel? No?
Mother was not Ariel.
Just want to be part of their world.
So Fen is actually it's a type of wetland.
Yes.
In case you didn't know that, it's
kind of marshy and
it wouldn't be my first choice for a girl, but you never know. But yeah, so Namor's mom, her name's Fen.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Fen or Princess Fen, depending on who you're talking to.
Right.
So here's what happened ish.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Mackenzie cruising along on the Oracle, looking for vibranium. And how's he doing that?
Sailing the seas, exploring.
Blowing stuff up.
That too.
Now, as luck would have it, they happen to be above where Atlantis, which is, again, in comic continuity, Namor's from Atlantis.
Yeah.
So, although Atlantis seems to move depending on what they need, but at the time they sort of accidentally ran into Atlantis. Fenn's dad, known as
Leonard Mackenzie.
Fenn's dad, Emperor
Fenn's
Thor.
dad. Right. Yes.
Was like, hey, what's going on? You, daughter, go up and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And she did. And then she met Leonard.
And they fell in love. And they had a baby.
Yes.
Now, Namor,
Mm-hmm.
he's a mutant.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because he's, a child of an Atlantean and human. It's because he's got a different color skin than most of the Atlanteans.
Right.
Because Atlanteans, they're usually
orange like an Oompa Loompa? No.
they're usually blue.
Right. In terms of their skin color. They're not necessarily sad, just blue.
Again, we here at Combination, we make the promise that we will never sing to you because we sing very badly, which is why we will not be singing the Am I Blue song. And pretty much the only reason, because let me tell you, during rehearsal when we were talking it through, we made that joke. But yeah, so in addition to the wings on the feet, which make him a mutant, and the, you know,
Like he has pink skin as opposed to all the rest of the Atlanteans that have
yeah.
bluish.
But most of the Atlanteans do have the ears,
Yes.
because apparently that's helpful underwater.
Yeah. Well, it's more water dynamic. When you're
Yeah,
swimming.
that's it. That's it,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're like little mini fins.
So,
That's the story I'm sticking with.
in addition to Namor, there's Namora,
Namor. Yeah. It was originally called.
whose original name was Aquaria Nautica Neptunia, not Salagadula Michikabula.
Bibbidi bobbidi boo.
Yeah, not that. And
Or
neither was
Rosanna
it,
Dodana,
huh?
or Rosanna Dodana Bobana, right? Or one of those.
Neither was it Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
No.
So Namora is sometimes considered Namor's cousin. Sometimes she's not, depending on what level, where you are in the storyline. Namora first appeared in 1947, and I think initially was considered maybe to be a love interest of Namor, and then not. She isn't, even though she is usually now these days considered to be a cousin. I think it's somehow a cousin by marriage, not a blood relative.
Yeah, it's like
And
part
again-
of the overall royal family, but not necessarily like.
Yeah. And Namora is not so there's Namor, there's Namora, and then there's
Namorita.
Namorita. And Namorita first appeared in 1972. And again, not to make your head hurt, but Namorita is actually a clone of Namora's, because Namora, who was also half Atlantean, half human, was sterile. Couldn't have kids, wanted to have kids, and yes, cloned herself, and then had Namorita, which she raised as a daughter. Yeah, awkward family dinner.
And you thought soap operas were hard to follow.
Yeah. Namorita first appeared in what, 1972?
Yep.
So
Went on to become part of the New Warriors and a couple other teams, and yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
And
then also
other Atlanteans.
Yes.
There's a Tuma.
Tuma.
So again,
From a different tribe altogether.
sometimes, what was that?
From a different tribe altogether.
Yeah, so Atlantis is Atlantis, but there's different tribes of folks who are underwater. And Atuma is part of the Skara tribe. And sometimes, depending on the story and the continuity, etc., Atuma, he and Namor, they're buddies, they're friends, they're hanging out, they're drinking sea breezes. And other times, they're arch rivals, they're enemies.
Atuma's trying to take the throne from Namor.
They have a very complicated relationship. Very complicated relationship.
But either way, Atuma likes to wear giant fish skulls on his head.
It's a look.
It is.
It's a look. Not everyone can take, not everyone can carry it off.
But he shows up in the movie too, sporting some interesting headwear.
It's all about it's all about the accessories and the fashion statements. But
Make it work.
Namor, not Namor.
Yes.
How many times has Namor been married?
He's a player. Well,
So, okay. You could make the argument that the number should be higher than 2. Okay? Because let's face it, Lynn Harris, Lyra, Betty Dean, Sue Storm.
Yeah, but a lot of those I think were
hoped
for, maybe even betrothed. Not sure they ever got down the altar.
Yeah. The number of times that Namor of his own free will, actually went and got married twice. Happened twice, which over 90 years is probably not bad. And Visionaries specifically references the two former wives, specifically Dorma, who is also his cousin, and
Marina Smallwood.
That didn't end well.
Somewhere down the line, we might talk about her when we talk about another book, but that's another story.
Yeah. But Namor has always been sort of a romantic.
Yes.
Kind of. You know, Namor didn't have trouble getting dates. Just saying.
Nope.
Now, in this book specifically, right? Visionaries?
Yeah.
Namor, he does some stuff.
He does.
Specifically, he goes and destroys what? It's not a planet, because he's not Jean Grey.
Or Galactus.
He goes and destroys an idol. It annoys him. It bothers him. And let's face it, Namor is an anti-hero.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
Sometimes it's a bit of a hothead, even.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, okay, if you look through all of Namor's continuity, sure, he fought the Nazis because Nazis are bad.
Yeah.
Nazis are bad.
Everybody hates those guys.
Everybody. Or at least
that's Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah, exactly. But he doesn't have anything like a prime directive or that kind of mentality. He's not going to natively or innately be respectful of your beliefs if he thinks they're stupid. He's an anti-hero. He's going to do what he thinks is best. He's, that's his deal.
And his people.
He's not. Now, speaking of the people, he meets people.
Sometimes he even befriends people, believe it or not.
Sometimes he even catches people as they fall out of buildings. In Visionary, he meets
Caleb Alexander.
Okay. So, Caleb Alexander is a marine biologist or who's also an oceanographer, who's also a biochemist. He was busy.
Got inspired by Namor as a very young boy because he was all into actually reading, because in Marvel comics they talk about how they actually do comics in the world about their heroes. So he read Captain America comics and Human Torch comics and Namor comics and the Invaders when they battled all the guys in World War II. And Caleb was a big fan, and then got the chance to almost meet Namor, and then it almost turned into a tragic Italian accident, and Namor saved him, and they've been acquaintances ever since. Got all that?
Sorta. So, but in Visionaries, he and Namor hang out. Namor meets Caleb's daughter. I'm sure all of it will end super well.
Sure.
But again, Namor has that rep of being a little bit of a hothead.
Yeah.
And Caleb, he has a theory.
About Namor's physiology. Specifically
the blood.
Yes.
So you've seen the movies. Even if you're not some sort of deep dive expert, you've seen enough movies where they talk about the fact of coming from the depths up to the surface. You've got to do it the right way. It's sometimes tricky. There's sometimes complications.
Yeah.
Caleb seems to have a theory that Namor needs to have his blood fussed with on a regular basis. Again, it's one of those things of read about it in the book. Namor has had throughout his history, he's been a hothead, he's had memory lapses, he's had a tough life, y'all.
Yep.
But, but maybe with Caleb's help, he'll have a nice, he'll have some smooth sailing.
Yeah. You won't always be winging it.
All right. Now, in comics, Namor means
The Avenging Sun.
and Namora, by the way, avenging daughter.
Daughter.
Now, I know that in the movie, and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, the movie is taking Namor to be Namor, to taking him to be more of a Aztec, Mayan, Mesoamerican person, and that Namor actually is short for Sin Amor, hence the Namor, not Namor. But in comics, no.
Yeah.
First of all, in comics, it's always Namor.
Namor, yep.
Which was supposed to mean avenging sun in some language. And frankly, Bill Everett mentioned in several interviews that the way that he got Namor was that he took the word Roman and spelled it backwards.
Right. Because he was trying to come up with that concept of that warrior race, almost gladiator-like race.
Mm-hmm.
Go out, conquer, establish new kingdoms for your peoples kind of attitude. As those Atlanteans did back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Crush your enemies.
Hear the lamentations of the women's in front of him. Yeah.
Exactly. For an additional no points. What's that from?
That's from Conan.
There you go. And that's not what Namor yells in battle.
No. He has a shorter, better battle cry.
His battle cry is?
It's not Excelsior, that's Stan Lee's battle cry.
It's also New York's.
That too.
And it's not Tempus Terrere, it's clobbering time in Latin. Or at least as close as I can get. It's also not Vindices Convocate. That's Avengers Assemble. It's Imperious Rex.
Yes.
Which kind of translates into Emperor King, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to me...
I kind of always took it to almost be kind of not a literal translation of Long Live the King kind of.
Yeah, sort of like, I'm the king, I have the right to do this.
Yes.
I'm gonna
by royal decree. But Imperious
yeah,
Rex,
that kind of thing. There's been a couple situations, like one time apparently he was fighting Thor, and Thor's like, what does that mean? And
yeah.
The answer was not satisfactory.
No.
So again, tonight we've been talking about Namor Visionaries.
Mm-hmm.
The official blurb goes as follows. Namor the Submariner, the world's first mutant.
Yes.
True. He's the king of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
See one of Marvel's most iconic characters written and penciled by the talented John Byrne.
Yeah.
As Namor finally learns the truth of his nasty temper, that blood thing we were mentioning, he faces the corporate threat of the diabolical Mars twins, tames the deadly Griffin, is sued for his attacks on New York, and gets beheaded. But then he gets better.
Don't lose your head.
Yeah. It's Namor like you've never seen him before, guest starring Namorita, Iron Man, and Fantastic Four, among others.
Yeah.
So John Byrne is, obviously, he's a comic book writer and artist. He has worked on many major American superheroes, kind of all of them at this point.
Pretty much. X-Men, Fantastic Four, Superman, Avengers,
Wonder Woman,
Batman.
Yeah.
Batman and Superman.
Batman and Captain America. Yeah.
JSA, Justice League,
Alpha Flight,
Alpha Flight.
Great Lakes
Plus, he
Avengers.
titles of his own.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, as a matter of fact, if you all remember the 1986 relaunch of Superman, that was John Byrne.
Man of Steel.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, the creator-owned works, those are Next Men and Danger Unlimited, and he also worked with Mike Mignola on Hellboy.
Yeah.
Oh, and most recently, the Star Trek comics for IDW Publishing.
Mhm.
And in 2015, Byrne was inducted into the Comic Book Hall of Fame. So, and She-Hulk. She-Hulk. We've done
Yes,
She-Hulk
we did
previously,
She-Hulk.
which again he wrote and
True.
did the art, and
And helped
it's
with the
obvious.
Pokemon.
Yep. He was having a good time.
Yeah.
And tonight, Michael is the big winner. Good job, dude.
Good job, Michael. Thanks for logging in and playing along.
I know.
Well done,
We
sir.
really appreciate it. Okay. Thanks for coming. Thanks for checking in. Next week, we're going to do Ironheart, I think.
Yes.
And if you're wondering why, last week we did Shuri, the Black Panther. This week we're doing Namor. Next week we're doing Ironheart. If you know, you know why. But in the meantime, if there's a book or a character that you want us to try and maybe unpack, send us an email at the.com.nation@gmail.com. If you have any questions, compliments, complaints, let us know. And oh yeah, we forgot to mention, like us, follow us,
subscribe, ring
set
the
up the
bell,
reminder,
feed us.
subscribe, ring the bell, hit the buzzer, all of it. We're only doing this because we like it. If you like it too, we'd appreciate your support.
Mm-hmm.
We do occasionally try to raise some money for charity and generally try to be a force for good in the world.
Yes.
Come along, join the nation, and we'll see you next week.
And read more comics.
Exactly.